Happy morning, my dear students. Welcome to Science Online Learning. Today we are going to continue our learning on Chapter 13, Matter. So let's get started with a quick recap. In our previous video, we studied about matter. We discussed that matter is the stuff that every object or everything we see around us is made up of. So we define matter as anything that occupies space and has weight or mass. And we also studied about the three states of matter: solid, liquid, and gaseous state. We learned that solid have a fixed volume and a shape. As you can see in this picture, a boy is sitting on a rock. A piece of rock is a solid because it has got a fixed shape and a fixed volume. Volume means the space occupied by an object is called as volume. So coming on to liquids, liquids have a fixed volume but does not have a fixed shape because it takes the shape of the container on which it is poured. And gases do not have a fixed volume or a fixed shape. And on heating and cooling, matter can change from one state to another. For example, a solid can change into liquid, a liquid into gas, and gas back to liquid, and liquid back to solid. So all these changes can happen when we heat or cool it. Then we learned that matter is made up of tiny particles and they are called as atoms. And these atoms, they attract each other with a force. And there are nearly 114 different kinds of atoms. And atoms cannot stay independently. So that is why they join to form molecules. Atoms of same kind form molecule of an element. For example, two hydrogen atoms combine together to form molecule of an element, whereas atoms of different kind like two hydrogen atom combined with one oxygen atom to form molecule of a compound. So always remember that molecules of elements contain the same kind of atoms and molecules of compound contain different kinds of atoms. Then we studied how matter changes. So one kind of matter change into another kind of matter, then the process is called a chemical reaction, and this change is called a chemical change. We discussed about burning as a chemical reaction and photosynthesis as a chemical reaction. Today we are going to discuss about respiration as a chemical reaction. So we studied that in chemical reactions new substances are formed. So let's see how respiration is a chemical reaction. What happens during respiration? The food we eat, the glucose of food combined with oxygen to form carbon dioxide, water vapor, and energy is also produced. So in this reaction, new substances like carbon dioxide and water is formed. So that is why we say respiration is a chemical reaction. Next, students, do you know that matter can change from one state to another when it is heated or cooled? And can you tell whether these changes are chemical changes? No, they are not chemical changes because new substances are not formed when matter change its state. So let us consider one example. Water change into ice when we cool it, but ice is just a form of water. It is not a new substance here. And when we warm that ice, the ice again melts back to water. So this is because both ice and water are made up of the same substance, that is two atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen, which is called as water. So both ice in solid state and water which is in liquid state are made up of same kind of atom, and no new substances are formed in these changes like freezing and melting. So that is why we say freezing and melting are not chemical changes because no new substances are formed during their changes. Next, we'll move on to the states of matter. So as you can see in this picture, solid have a different characteristics. Liquid has got different characteristics and gas behave in a different way. So why does the three states are different? Let's learn this from this picture. So in solids, the particles in a solid, they are all tightly packed in a regular pattern. As you can see in this picture, some examples of solids like chair, a notebook or a magnet, piece of stone or rock, a hammer. In all these cases, the atoms or the particles in it are tightly packed. As you can see in that round, the red ones are the particles in a solid. They are tightly packed in a regular pattern, and particles in a solid will vibrate but cannot move past each other. So when we heat a solid, what happen? The particles in a solid, it will vibrate, it will just vibrate in its mean position, but it cannot move away from its position. So that is why solids can retain their shape. They have got a fixed shape and a volume because they occupy some space. Next, moving on to liquids. The particles in a liquid, they are close together but they do not have a regular pattern. So that is why liquids can easily flow. It is because the particles of a liquid, they can move over each other or they can slide over each other. So that is why the particles in liquid can flow, and the liquids assume the shape of the container. So even though liquids have a definite volume, but they do not have a definite shape, but it takes the shape of the container. So you must remember that liquids can flow. It is because the molecules of a liquid can easily move over each other or slide over each other. Some of the examples of liquid, as you can see here, ink, oil, water, milk, honey, all these are some examples of the liquid. So next, let's move on to gas. The particles or molecules present in a gas are well separated and they do not have any regular pattern. So there is more space between the molecules in gas, and the force between the molecules is also very less. So when we heat a gas, the particle in a gas, it will vibrate and it can move away at high speeds. So that is why gases assume the shape of their containers, and gases do not have a fixed shape. They do not have a fixed volume. To summarize, in this video we studied about the states of matter, solid, liquid and gaseous state, and also about the properties of solid state, liquid state and gaseous state. So we studied in solids, the molecules or the atoms are very closely packed. So why are they closely packed is because of the strong force of attraction between the molecules. So that is why they always stay together. They are arranged in a regular pattern, and we cannot compress a solid or we cannot change the shape of the solid. It is because the molecules of solid are very tightly or closely packed and they cannot move away from their fixed position. So that is why solids have got a fixed shape and a fixed volume. Next is liquids. So in liquids, the molecules or atoms are packed more loosely than in solids. And beside, they do not attract each other like in solid. The force of attraction between the molecule is comparatively less. When we compare it with solid, it is less. So this is why liquids can flow and it can change the shape. And liquids, when we heat it, it can move away from their fixed positions. It can slide over each other. So that is why liquids flow. And liquids have a fixed volume, but we should remember that liquids do not have a fixed shape. Liquids can flow and assume the shape of the container on which it is poured. Lastly, we discussed about gas. In gases, the molecules attract each other with very less or weak force, and they can move about anywhere as they please. So this is why the gases do not have a fixed volume or a fixed shape. So the molecules move around and they fill up any space that is available. Thank you students for watching this short video, and now it's time for you to complete your assignments. I have sent you the question and answers, the short answers from this lesson. I want you to copy it in your classwork notebook neatly and legibly, and also take time to read this interesting lesson about matter. Thank you. Have a nice day.